Welcome to Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, or say what again? I'm Michele, and I'm the host of Heritage Gourmet. Today, we're making a cake inspired by a German specialty, Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, or Black Forest cake. This recipe is lightly adapted from the King Arthur Flour website. There are many recipes out there for Black Forest cake, but they all have the same basic building blocks: chocolate cake, whipped cream, dark cherries. The cake is usually finished with chocolate shavings and more whipped cream and more cherries. Sounds delicious, right? So we're going to start by adding the dry ingredients to one bowl and the wet ingredients to another. So the cocoa powder, the cake flour, the sugar, the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt go in one bowl. And now in another bowl, there's vegetable oil, buttermilk, vanilla extract, and 4 eggs at room temperature. We're going to add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients. The chocolate sponge cake is tender, light, and moist. The cherries are dark and bursting with the flavor of Kirschwasser, or Kirsch, a dry, clear brandy from the Black Forest region of southwestern Germany. It's distilled from the tart Morello cherry. And then there's the whipped cream. Now we're going to bake our cake, and we're just going to divide the batter. We're going to bake these in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. The Black Forest is a mountain region in Germany, in the state of Baden-Württemberg. It's Germany's largest continuous forest. The people have a long history there. In fact, one of the theories for how the Black Forest cake got its name is the similarities it bears to the traditional dance costumes worn by the women in the region. While the cake is baking, we're going to make the filling. So you want 1 jar of cherries and a few tablespoons of kirsch. Though the cake has a long history, the first printed recipes only appeared in the early 1900s. Several pioneering chefs are credited with inventing this cake, including Joseph Keller in 1915 and Edwin Hildebrand in 1934. No matter who invented it, it's a celebration of the region's produce. And now I'm going to get the mixer and make the sweetened whipped cream. This is just 3 cups of heavy whipping cream, a little bit of vanilla extract. And as the mixer is whipping the cream, we're going to slowly add the powdered sugar. We're going for a stiff whipped cream frosting, and it's about done. We're using a piping bag because we're cutting this cake into 4 layers, and between each one is a layer of this whipped cream. And it's easier if you draw a border around the outside of the cake to keep your whipped cream layers from running over the sides when you assemble the cake. Perfect. We're using dark chocolate today because the whipped cream is already sweetened, but you can use what you like. These cakes are so special that in 2013, the European Commission decreed that any cake within the EU calling itself a Black Forest cake was legally mandated to use the real original ingredients, including German Kirsch, which is still made today using the traditional methods. Cherries are crushed, and the whole mess, pits and skins and all, is distilled. And during the distillation process, some of the cherry pits get crushed and release hydrocyanic acid. And that's what gives Kirsch its distinctive bitter almond flavor. If you can't find it, or you're abstaining from alcohol, you can use cherry juice or brandy instead, but it won't be the same. And don't call it a Black Forest cake within earshot of the European Commission. Now that our cakes have cooled, we're going to slice them into layers. You want a long, sharp, serrated knife for this. And keep your hand firmly on top as you are slicing through the cake. That keeps it steady. So now we have our bottom layer, and we are going to brush each layer with that syrup from earlier from the cherries and the kirsch. Now we're going to pipe a border of whipped cream. And then just roughly fill in. Now we're going to spoon about 1/3 of these cherries over the cake layer. And now we're going to add the next cake layer and repeat the process. And if your cake's a little lopsided, don't worry about it. We can cover that with whipped cream. And now we have our chocolate from earlier and our maraschino cherries for decorating. And you can just sprinkle the chocolate on, however much you like. Here's our final cake. Isn't it beautiful? According to Sauveur, the traditional way to finish this cake is to pour a shot of kirsch over the top of the fully assembled, fully decorated cake. Prost! Cheers!